Chapter 15 Cult of Croc. Glessa lay in the clearing in a daze. The tangle was still and calm. Battle was done, and the commotion inside Tel Jalad couldn't reach her. Trolls were apparently either dead or frightened off. The elves had disappeared. She had the entire forest to herself, but for the first time in her life, she felt alone and out of place within the tangle. Glessa had never had many friends, but she had a home, a family, and Kane. Now she had nothing. No, she amended to herself. Now she had a destiny. A destiny and a legacy of death. She stared at the ground, hardly aware of her surroundings. She heard Slowbad's voice calling her, echoing as if it stood at the edge of a great abyss. She looked down. There was no chasm, just blood and melted copper. Her eyes fell on something else next to it on the ground. It was a finger and thumb lying next to the shards of the mage staff, blue-grey and emaciated. They weren't elven. Glissa snatched them up from the ground and held them hard in her fist, rocking back and forth.
"Glissa?"
called Slowbad. He sounded far off. His voice echoed all around her.
"Glissa, where are you, huh?"
Was she lost?
"Pick her up! She had someone safe for a great distance. We need to get her to safety, huh? Then we find out what happened here."
Glissa fell into the depths of the huge hole. The lip of the chasm passed her by, and she fell into nothingness. Her only companion was the wind, rushing past her ears. Swirling shapes danced in front of her, then disappeared into blackness. She saw her mother and father. She saw Lies. They were reaching out to her, their mouths open as if screaming in terror. She couldn't move. She couldn't reach them. There was no sound but the wind. Their screams were silent. Glissa tried to scream, but she had no voice. She saw Chump, serene but dead. His eyes were closed. She could see the scorched hole in his chest. The charred body of Brashan floated by, writhing in agony. The elf warrior tried to run towards it, but she was running in air. She saw Kane. He was running as well, running towards her, a smile on his face. Then he was gone, a look of astonishment in his eyes just before the darkness returned. Glissa had no idea how long she had been falling. Time had no meaning anymore. There was only the darkness and the wind. Was this her destiny? An endless fall into darkness? Or was this a punishment? Perhaps she couldn't be killed because she had a destiny. Everyone around her paid for her destiny with their lives. Her punishment was to live in the darkness with the memories of her failure. Next she saw Slowbad and the golem in the darkness. Slowbad was calling to her. She could see him mouthing the words, "Glissa! Glissa!" She just couldn't hear him. There was only the wind. Something was different, though. Slowbad wasn't dead, at least not that Glissa remembered. The golem wasn't really alive. What were they doing in her personal purgatory? She concentrated on Slowbad, trying to make him come closer or go away. As she concentrated, she began to hear his words.
"Glissa! Glissa, are you there? Come back, huh? Glissa!"
He seemed concerned, as did the golem. Somehow the metallic's man's ever stoic face seemed furrowed. His eyes narrowed. He looked at Slowbad and opened his mouth. "What now?" asked the golem. That raspy voice jarred Glissa back to reality. The golem had spoken. Glissa opened her eyes slowly to see the goblin and the golem standing before her, just as they had in her dream. Or had it been a flare? Glissa didn't know. The blackness dissolved into a dark red behind her two companions. Where was she? What happened to the tangle? When did the golem learn to talk? Glissa opened her mouth to ask these questions, but all that came out was a gurgle. She coughed and tried again. "Slowbad, where are we?" she said. The goblin smiled and slapped the golem on his iron knee.
"She's back, huh?" said the goblin. "She's back."
"I see," said the golem.
1,000 questions circled around in Glissa's brain. Where was I? She asked at last.
You tell us, huh? Said Slowbad. Glissa shut down in forest after Aerofin's attack. Not say a word in 3 rotations. The golem carry us to a safe place.
Aerofins? 3 rotations? The words hurt her throat. Her mouth was dry. Water? Glissa looked at the golem, who walked away.
We go to mountains, he said. Cultists I tell you about, to Dwugget. We safe here now.
No, said Glissa, we're not safe. They're not safe. Nobody is safe, not with me around. The golem returned with a jug of water. Glissa took it and drank deeply. I should go, she said. You should have left me in the tangle.
Trolls tell us to go, said Slowbad. After Slowbad fix secret door, they say better for you to leave forest. Say it with a lot more words, a lot more bowing and smiles. Could tell Troll's afraid. Slowbad see that look before, huh?
Then you should have left me in the Glimmer Void, said Glissa. It's not safe here. It's not safe anywhere. That Badelkan mage has spies everywhere. He bought off Strang, and now Champ is dead. He paid Geth to attack us. I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't get to Ushanti. She recognized the serum, I could tell. We can't trust her now. We can't trust anyone.
We trust Dwugget, huh? Cultists never even seen other races. They outcasts like us, huh? Outcasts.
Perfect targets for treachery, said Glissa. She rose from the pile of hides where she had been laying and tested her legs. They were in a small cavern lit by a fire inside some metal contraption in the corner. She walked unsteadily across the room to look at the fire sconce. Even if the robed mage didn't get to Dwugget, I bet those foul birds have been stalking us since we left the Mephedros. She felt like a caged animal. We led them right to Rashan and Kane. Now you've put the cultists in danger. You say we're safe? We'll never be safe. Gently the golem guided Glissa to the hides. He sat her down and held her shoulders. She scratched a spot on her leg for a while, scraping the moulder off the copper, then picking the green rump out from underneath her claws. There was something in her fist. She hadn't realized that the other hand had been closed all this time. The elf opened up her hand. What she had been clenching was a thumb and finger. She had picked them up after the battle. They were even more shriveled and grey than she had last remembered. I cut these off the robed figure. I'll keep them until I can unite him with his dead fingers. Glissa ripped a strip of leather from the hides beneath her. She stabbed her claws through the severed digits, threading the leather strap through the holes, and tied the gruesome band around her neck.
Listen, crazy elf. You acting crazier than usual, huh? You need rest. Get strength back. Don't worry about Croc Colt. Dwugget keep him hidden for 50 cycles. No one find us here, huh? Nobody. Tomorrow we talk. Pick what to do next, huh? Like Bosch said, then we leave. We leave, and Colt stay safe.
The golem gave her more water. Her body shook as she drained the mug. The water helped calm her a little, and that gentle kneading of the golem's hands on her shoulders. Somewhere deep down she knew she was being foolish. Not everyone was trying to kill her, but until she found that mage and finished what he had started with her, nobody would be safe. Something nagged at the back of her brain as she fingered her gruesome pendants. Bosch? She asked. Was this some new enemy that they needed to add to her growing list? Who is this Bosch, and what did he say?
Golem is Bosch, said Slowbad. His name Bosch. He tell me on the trip, huh? Bosch.
He Bosch talks? Asked Glissa. How?
Slowbad cleaned the rest of the dross off in the tangle in one trip, huh? Said the goblin. Only one morning he starts talking.
Glissa drank another cup of water. She was tired. She realized that. 3 days asleep, but she hadn't rested. That was all it was. She looked at her friends. They were good friends. She could see the concern on their faces. It was time to come from the darkness and rejoin the world. Glissa took a deep breath and looked up at the golem. So you can talk now? She asked. Yes, said Bosch. Glissa looked up at him, waiting for more, then looked at Slowbad and raised her eyebrows.
I say he talks. I'd not say he talks a lot, huh?
Glissa laughed. She was starting to feel better, but the doubt and fear that had enveloped her and sent her hurtling into that abyss still lingered in the shadows of her mind. The sooner she left the cultists, the better, she thought. For them, anyway. Perhaps she could leave Slowbad and Bosch as well. At least until the danger passed. Later, after Glissa had gotten a little dream-free sleep, she told Slowbad and Bosch of the events at the Tree of Tales, of what she had learned from Chumph and his murder. She told him what the Vidalcan were and the source of the serum. She told them of Strang's treachery and the robed figure in the forest. She told them of Kane's death. That was the hardest of all.
I'm sorry. We couldn't keep up. Slowbad put the golem back together, huh? We got from the tree as fast as we could. Sorry.
Doesn't matter, said Glissa. She began rocking back and forth and realized she was playing with the severed fingers again. She pushed the necklace under her tunic and shook her head and arms to put away the darkness that threatened to consume her. Better you two weren't with me, she said after a while. You'd be dead too.
Maybe, said Slowbad. Maybe no. Still sorry. We'll give life to save friend, huh?
No. No more deaths. Not because of me. We leave here now. We go to the cult and end this. Glissa pushed herself up from the hides again. Her legs and arms ached from 2 days of inactivity. She almost fell. Bosch stuck out his arm and caught her by the shoulder.
We leave soon, huh? Soon as you able. Eat, rest, and then we go, said Slowbad.
The elf sighed. Go where? We can go to the cult and talk to them, but we don't even know how to find the Vidalcan. Slowbad gave a short cough, as if clearing his throat.
Slowbad heard of Vidalcan before, huh? Not much, no, but some things.
What?
Vidalcan live around Quicksilver Sea. That's a long way from here, huh? Slowbad never been. Long walk for a crazy elf. Slowbad, Bosch. But we can do it.
Do what?
Find Vidalcan at Quicksilver Sea, just like I tell you.
The goblin was plainly growing impatient with Glissa's limited intelligence.
Maybe we go there after we see Dwugget.
There was a table in the middle of the room with bowls on it. Glissa realized she was famished. With the golem's help, she walked to the table where she found some stew. She gulped it down, then served herself more from a large pot. She didn't even worry about the odd chunks of meat that she couldn't identify. Glissa wondered if she could tell Slowbad and Bosch about Chumph's last revelation. About the Hollow World. They might think she had dreamed that part of the conversation. She wasn't even sure it was real anymore. But it reminded her of something. Slowbad had told her about Croc. He said he had seen the inner world. Tell me about this cult again, Slowbad, she said. Why are they hidden? What did Croc see? Slowbad sat down and poured himself some stew.
Croc was Goblin Shaman, huh? Croc branded as heretic for violating Steel Mother, he said in between gulps. Executed for violating Steel Mother, but Croc's story spread. Cult formed to follow his words. Follow him and search for the mother's heart.
The Steel Mother? Asked Glissa as she poured herself a third bowl of stew.
The world,
said Slowbad. He thought for a moment, then continued as if reciting a litany he learned as a child.
Goblins come from Steel Mother. Keep Great Furnace burning for her in life, and return to Steel Mother in death.
And Croc violated the mother. He found her heart. How did he do that?
Croc entered the womb of the Steel Mother.
The womb? Said Glissa. She was interested in the story despite the disturbing imagery.
So bad never seen it. Cults say womb is wondrous place. A huge dark tunnel straight down into the Steel Mother. All goblins live around the womb.
A hole? A huge hole in the world? Slowbad nodded. Tell me about this heart Croc found. It was inside the mother's womb?
Yes. Croc say he found heart of mother, huh?
He continued, reciting from memory again.
I stood in a sloping chamber with no roof, followed by ancient towers of coral. A giant sun hung above me, like a glowing sky tyrant. A bringer, an ingle, an doom, and I had found mother's heart.
Those are the moons, right? This Croc found a chamber inside the world with a fifth moon?
Sun. Only shines in all colors. That's what the cult says, huh? Slowbad never really believed them, but they give me a home, so Slowbad listen. Every day, Slowbad listen.
Memnock, the golem repeated. He paused as if straining to remember something important. Memnock, said Bosch. Glisser and Slowbad both turned and stared at the golem. What? Memnock, the golem repeated. He paused as if straining to remember something important. Lives inside the world. Glisser and Slowbad stared at each other. Bosch, is Memnock a Vidalcan? Bosch concentrated again and stood mute for at least a minute. Glisser worried that she might have overtaxed the metal man. Finally he looked at her and said, I do not know. I have never heard of a Vidalcan before today. Do you remember anything else about the serum or Memnock? No, said Bosch. Not yet. Glisser tapped her chin thoughtfully. I need to speak to the leader of the cult.
Why?
Something Chump said before he died. He said he'd been keeping a secret. He said the world is hollow. The cultists believe Croc went down the hole into the world with a single moon, sun, and Bosch remembers that Memnock lives inside the world. We need to jog Bosch's memory. Maybe the cultists can tell us something of Croc's journey that helps Bosch remember.
So we not go to Quicksilver Sea? Asked Slowbad.
Not yet. We don't know if it's a Vidalcan or Memnock after me. Flab, Memnock might even be a Vidalcan. Bosch, did Memnock have 4 arms?
4 arms?
Glisser nodded. The robed figure in the tangle had 4 arms and a bald, misshapen head. Again, Bosch stood silent for several minutes. Glisser was sure she had broken him this time. Finally, he focused on her again and said, I do not remember. Glisser sighed. We need to see the leader of the cult.
It wait until first moon rises, huh? You sleep for 3 rotations, but Slowbad need rest. I take you to Dwugget after breakfast, huh? Sleep, food, Dwugget.
The elf nodded. I could use some rest as well. I wasn't exactly relaxing on the way here either. Actually, she felt renewed. Her heart was pounding, and she felt completely awake. This changed everything. If Memnock was below her and there was a hole in the goblin's lair, they might not even have to leave the mountains to leave the mountains. Despite her excitement, Glisser was asleep moments after she lay down. A sleep mercilessly devoid of dreams. When she heard Bosch's voice calling to her and opened her eyes to darkness, she felt momentary panic, as if she had fallen back into the abyss. So bad, Glisser, said the golem again. Wake up, something is wrong. What is it? glad to hear her own voice in the darkness. She sat up and squinted, trying to pierce the gloom. She could see two red dots high up above her that could only be Bosch's eyes. "A battle approaches." Glissa heard something that sounded like a small explosion, and the hairs on the back of her neck stood up. "Eripheus," she said. "Bosch, grab Slowbad, we're under attack. We need to get the cultists." Bosch lifted the goblin, who snorted sleepily. "Wake him. I need light." Glissa crept along the wall and towards the door. She could barely see its outline. From the corridor came a flash of light. "I'm going to take a look," she whispered. She inched down the corridor, back against the wall, and peered around the edge. Pools of light from goblin fire tubes dotted the next corridor. In the dim night, Glissa saw a score of goblins running towards her. They were being chased by what looked like large walking Arathens. Their bodies had the same blue, bulbous heads, but their silver bodies were much larger, man-sized. Each had two massive arms connected to a barrel-shaped body. Their legs were mere stubs jutting from the base of the barrels, yet they moved amazingly fast. One of the silver assassins pointed an arm at a retreating goblin. It had no hands, but a huge metal arrow shot out, impaling two goblins. Their body knocked down several in front of them. A second barbed missile shot out the other creature, taking down a third goblin. Then the goblins were past Glissa, running down the hall. A bolt of lightning came from the other beast, blasting a mass of fallen goblins. Glissa fell to her knees. "No," she screamed, "not again." The silver attackers stopped and searched for the source of the screaming, then moved forward. They glided down the corridor, their stubby legs never touching the iron flooring. She could do nothing but watch in horror as they drew near. In the pile of goblins she saw only the faces of Cain, Rashan, Chumph, and her family. Her grief paralyzed her. Two hovering attackers reached the corner and peered into the darkness. Glissa curled into a ball, half hoping they wouldn't see her, half hoping they would. Something struck her, hurling her back down the corridor to fall in a heap. She looked up in time to see one of the silver men point deadly arm at her. The bolt flew towards her. She made no attempt to dodge. Inches from her face, the harpoon stopped, snatched from the air by Bosch. The golem flipped the spear over in his hand and flung it back down the corridor. The huge missile slammed into the hovering beast's crystal head. The resulting explosion knocked the headless creature to the floor and slammed its companion through the wall into the corridor.
"Pick her up! Follow us! I get out, huh?"
said Slowbad. Bosch snatched Glissa from the floor, cradling her in his arms. The hair on her neck tingled, but she couldn't even cry out. Bolts of lightning struck the wall and floor behind them as they ran. Bosch stumbled and almost fell. Glissa felt a surge of energy run through her body. The golem regained his balance and kept running. They raced through dark corridors, twisting back and forth, followed by the sound of lightning cracking and harpoons clanging. At last they halted and Bosch set Glissa down. She looked up to see Slowbad wrestling with a plate on the walls. The goblin grunted as he tried to pry it open with one of his tools. Bosch came forward, pushed 2 fingers behind the cover and ripped it off the wall.
"In here! Quick, huh?"
said Slowbad. Glissa crawled into the cramped tunnel.
"Keep moving,"
hissed Slowbad. Glissa obeyed. The darkness of the air duct called to her. She welcomed it back into her mind. Slowbad pulled out his fire tube, lit it, and tossed it into the ductwork. Glissa grabbed the light and inched forward. She could see now, but the darkness closed in on her. The abyss was near, and she could do nothing but crawl towards it. She heard the clanging of harpoons again, as if through a fog. Then Bosch's voice. "I cannot fit. Proceed without me. I will safeguard your escape," said the metal man. There was silence. Glissa looked back to see Slowbad hug the giant golem's leg.
"Goodbye, Bosch."
"Farewell, friend." Bosch turned. 2 harpoons stuck into his back beside a huge scorch mark. He lumbered down the hallway into the darkness.
"Keep moving,
said Slowbad after a deep breath and a stifled sniffle.
"Keep moving."
Gussa crawled through the ductwork, following Slowbad's direction. The farther she went through the maze of cramped tunnels, the closer she came to the abyss. After a while, she could hardly hear Slowbad's commands through the fog in her mind. She saw a light up ahead. A few more turns and they reached the end of the tunnel. The yellow moon was rising in the distance. Gussa fell to the ground in a heap. She heard Slowbad drop to the ground behind her, but she stared in silence at the moon.